Have you ever woken up in the quiet hours, heart pounding as if it knows a secret you've almost forgotten? You lie there, staring at the ceiling, wondering how you arrived at this crossroads torn between who you were yesterday and who you're becoming today. Maybe you've weathered betrayals that left you doubting your own worth, or carried invisible burdens so heavy they twisted your breath into shallow whispers. It's in these moments, when the world feels both too vast and too painfully small, that something deep inside begins to stir. When I first stepped over the threshold of that inner wilderness, every familiar landmark felt like a lie. What I thought was love turned out to be a mirror, reflecting my own fears. What I believed was safety became the very cage I longed to escape. Yet in the raw edge of that unraveling, I discovered a door. Not a grand portal, cloaked in fanfare, but a weathered board hanging by a single hinge, quiet, unassuming, waiting for someone brave enough to press their hand against it. This is not a guidebook. There are no rules to memorize, no steps to follow in a neat line. Instead, you're invited into a conversation with your own soul to listen for the echoes that have been drowned out by noise. You might feel unsteady, as though your life has been rewritten in a language you don't yet understand. And that's the point. In these blank spaces, new stories are born, stories where you are no longer the wounded child chasing approval, but the sovereign architect of your own heart. As you lean in, let yourself breathe. Let every inhale remind you of the resilience beating in your chest, and every exhale honor the fragments you've released. If you've ever craved a safe place to rest your doubts, a gentle voice that sees the fierce beauty in your scars, you're in the right space. Here, we'll sit with the questions no one taught us to ask, hold the weight of unspoken grief, and taste the freedom that blossoms when we finally dare to feel it all. If this resonates, if the tug in your chest says yes, consider staying a while. Hit subscribe and click that little bell so you'll know when we share the next breath of this journey. Like the video if your heart is ready to expand, because this isn't just a story, it's the first spark of something vast unfolding inside you. You step through that narrow doorway and suddenly the air feels different, thicker, richer, as if it holds every unspoken longing you've ever carried. It's strange how fear and curiosity can intermingle, knotting together like vines you're both terrified to untangle and desperate to explore. You find yourself at the edge of a vast, unmapped terrain inside you. Every memory, a half-hidden photograph, a whisper from childhood becomes a landmark on this strange map. You remember the ache in your mother's eyes when she asked too much of your small shoulders, the way you learned to fold yourself into silent shapes just to keep the peace. And you recall the day you vowed you would never let anyone in again, because vulnerability felt like handing someone your heart on fragile glass. Here, in this space between who you were and who you might become, your old defenses start to dissolve. You feel the tremor in your spine when you realize that what you built to protect yourself now blocks the view to your own horizon. The walls you erected, words unspoken, feelings pushed away, begin to crumble under the simple weight of your attention. It's not instantaneous. There is no dramatic thunderclap or blinding light. Instead, there are soft shifts, like morning light filtering through a dusty window, illuminating specks of truth you never noticed before. You chase what you didn't get as a child, hoping to fill an emptiness that never belonged to you. You silence yourself just to feel safe, weaving a cloak of quiet that muffles your own voice. You confuse love with survival, mistaking frantic need for genuine connection. And then comes the tenderness. A single moment can open the door wider. The memory of a friend's gentle, "I see you." A stranger's unexpected kindness. The ache of grief finally allowed to surface. You realize you can hold both the wound and the wisdom it grants, the raw ache of abandonment alongside the fierce compassion it inspires. You feel the strains of music you once ignored. You taste the sweetness of your own laughter, unpolished and real. The world begins to shift in response to your awakening. Colors feel deeper, sounds richer, moments more precious. Even pain carries an invitation to understand. In the midst of this unfolding, you begin to detect a rhythm, like the heartbeat of the universe syncing with your own. It asks nothing of you but presence. When was the last time you sat with your own breath, watched it rise and fall without judgment? You might realize you've been moving so fast, checking off lists, solving problems, managing impressions, that you forgot the simple miracle of being alive right now. This rhythm is a song you know by heart but haven't heard for years. And when you tap into it, your pace slows, your chest opens, your curiosity blooms. Yet there are moments when you feel unsteady, as if the ground beneath you is shifting too quickly. Old patterns surface, a sharp word that cuts deeper than it ought to, a feeling of panic when someone gets too close. In those seconds, you might want to retreat, to rebuild the walls you just let down. But each time you pause and breathe into the discomfort, you deepen your trust in yourself. You learn that safety isn't a fortress built outside you. It's the quiet certainty that you can handle whatever arises. Then come the revelations that feel like small miracles. You notice how kindness to yourself ripples outward, transforming relationships you thought were fixed. The way you speak to that colleague softens. The argument with a loved one dissolves into compassion. You forgive yourself for mistakes you carried like shame for years. You start to see that every person you meet carries their own hidden terrain, some familiar, some utterly different, but all deserving of the same gentle attention you now offer yourself. And in the hush that follows each insight, you sense something vast, stirring an invitation to live beyond survival, to create a life guided by the quiet wisdom you've rediscovered. You imagine waking each morning curious about your own story, no longer bound by fear or expectation. You see yourself planting seeds of truth in the soil of your days, watering them with kindness, watching them grow into compassion, joy, connection. If this feels like the path you're just beginning to walk, let your heart rest here for a moment. Let every inhale remind you that you're alive. Let every exhale release what you no longer need. And if you're finding echoes of your own journey in these words, share a sign below just one word that captures how you resonate. It's a small gesture, but it reminds us we're not alone on this winding road. You begin to notice the subtleties that once slipped through your fingers, the quiet ache behind your laughter, the hesitance in your smile, the way your heart clenches at a sudden compliment. In the old days, you would have shaken it off, pushed it away, insisted you were fine. But now, something inside bids you to linger. You pause at the edge of conversations where your old habit was to hide, and instead let yourself be seen, faltering voice and all. There's a tremor in your words, yes, but within it lies an unspoken honesty that feels like home. On a particularly gray morning, you find yourself staring out the window at the rain tracing rivers down the glass. You remember how, not long ago, rain meant sadness, a reflection of your own tears you tried to conceal. But today, you sense a different invitation. You step outside, letting the droplets land on your skin, each one a tiny baptism washing away a fragment of doubt. You close your eyes and breathe, accepting that you don't have to be invincible to be strong. The world doesn't shatter if you allow yourself to crack open. Back inside, you reach for a journal you once abandoned. The pages are blank, waiting for the stories you buried, the moments you apologized too quickly, the nights you begged for peace in restless dreams, the times you blamed yourself when something went wrong. Your pen hovers and your chest tightens. But you begin, not to craft a perfect narrative, but simply to name the pain. Words spill out messy, raw, beautiful in their imperfection. Each sentence is a reclamation, a promise that your voice matters. And with every confession, you feel a small surge of courage. That afternoon, you see the way your friend's shoulders slump when she tells you about her own heartbreak. In the past, you might have offered advice what to do, how to move on. Today, you rest your hand on her arm, offering presence instead of solutions. You listen as she speaks, and the space between words fills with empathy. You realize that by honoring your own vulnerability, you've unlocked a deeper capacity to hold someone else's pain without flinching. There are nights, of course, when old fears resurface when you lie awake, convinced you're not enough, that you'll lose everything if you show too much. In those dark hours, you return to the rhythm you discovered earlier. Inhale, exhale, listen. You remind yourself that every storm eventually passes, and that you've weathered worse than this. You whisper to yourself what you might say to a friend in the same spot. You are seen, you are held, you are worthy. Even in the silence, you can cradle your own heart. Gradually, your relationships transform in subtle, almost magical ways. You find yourself speaking with greater honesty at work, naming your boundaries without guilt. You laugh more freely, letting joy bloom in unexpected moments. You hug your loved ones longer, not out of obligation, but because your chest aches with the simple sweetness of connection. The old script, "If I'm quiet, they won't see my flaws," is replaced by a new truth. My flaws are part of my beauty. One evening, you stand on a rooftop, watching the city lights flicker like fireflies, reflecting on how far you've come. The skyline stretches before you, a tapestry of stories, some bright, some desperate, all alive. You realize that your spiritual awakening wasn't a one-time event, but an ongoing partnership with unfolding reality. It's a dance between heartache and hope, shadow and light, where each step reveals more of your own resilience. In that moment, you understand the final gift of this journey, the freedom to embrace what is, not what you fear. You see that life will never be without challenges, but you now carry the inner compass to guide you through them. You feel a soft smile play at your lips, and for the first time in a long time, you trust that whatever comes next, you will meet it with an open heart. If your chest tightens reading these words, know it is the pulse of your own awakening calling. Breathe into it. Share one small truth you feel in the comments, just one phrase, one whisper that says, "I am here and I am alive." Let us remind each other that none of us walks this path alone. There comes a morning when you wake before dawn, heart humming with a strange anticipation, as if unseen currents are guiding you towards something sacred. You slip out into the half-light, feeling both tender and fearless, as though the boundary between your inner world and the waking world has softened. You carry a mug of tea into the garden, where dew has kissed each blade of grass, and you sit on the edge of a weathered bench, allowing the world to unfold around you while you remain still. In that stillness, you hear the soft murmur of your own soul, an intimate whisper that says, "You are more than what you've been told." It draws your gaze past familiar fences and hedges to the horizon, where the sky is painted in pale gold and rose. You realize that your spiritual awakening isn't a solitary event, but a lifelong unfolding, like a flower opening petal by petal, layer by layer, each one revealing more of your own color and design. And yet, life insists on its challenges. The same phone call that once would have sent your chest tightening now arrives as an invitation. The kind word that's late, the disagreement that stings, the unexpected change that rattles your plans. Instead of panicking, you breathe through the tension, naming the fear, "I am afraid to lose control," and then you let it rest beside you, acknowledging that control was never yours to keep. You notice how tears rise without shame, how your voice wobbles when you ask for support, and you recognize these as signs of your courage rather than your weakness. In offering your fragility to the world, you find strength you never knew you had. A project at work, once suffocated by your need to be perfect, now thrives when you share your uncertainties with colleagues, inviting them into your process rather than hiding behind a facade of certainty. You see that collaboration is not a threat, but a mirror that reflects the unique gifts you bring when you show up as yourself, complete with cracks and all. Home becomes a sanctuary and a laboratory where you experiment with kindness toward yourself and others. you discover that making space for your own needs doesn't take away from others. It actually nourishes your capacity to give. You set boundaries that once felt like walls and realize they are more like gates. They open and close with intention, guiding the flow of your energy rather than imprisoning it. A simple ritual emerges. In the evening, you light a candle not to ward off darkness, but to honor the light you carry within. You watch its flame flicker, understanding that even the smallest spark can illuminate vast shadows. On tougher days, when the momentum falters and old doubts sneak in, who am I to deserve this peace? You remember that every breath you take is a testament to your resilience. You reach for a stone on your nightstand, smooth from years of carrying it in your pocket, and you press it into your palm, grounding yourself in the tangible moment. You whisper to the part of you that still trembles, "I am learning." And you let that phrase be a balm, softening the sharp edges of expectation. In this newfound rhythm, you begin to notice nourishing patterns weaving through your life. You greet the sunrise with gratitude, acknowledging that each day is a fresh invitation. You pause at midday to close your eyes and feel the rise and fall of your lungs, grateful for the simple miracle of breathing. You end your evenings by reflecting on 3 small miracles: a child's laughter, a moment of unexpected clarity, the warmth of a friend's embrace, reminding yourself that joy often arrives in whispers rather than fanfare. The relationships around you deepen in hue and texture. Conversations become rich tapestries of shared vulnerability. You confess a long-held regret and feel the relief of being witnessed. You listen as someone else reveals a hidden fear and hold them in the quiet space of empathy. There is no rush to fix anything. There is only the sacred act of presence. You discover that true connection is not built on agreement, but on the willingness to be seen with all your contradictions, to honor another's complexity while they honor yours. And then, at unexpected moments, you catch a glimpse of your former self racing through life, clutching at scraps of validation, and you feel no judgment, only compassion for the weary traveler you once were. You realize that every step of discomfort, every night of tears, every trembling moment of choice has guided you here to a place where you can stand tall in your own humanity. The world around you seems to breathe in sync with your own unfolding, as if welcoming the fullness of your return. If at this point your chest feels both heavy with recognition and light with possibility, know that these are the twin currents of awakening. You are learning to walk in both grief and gratitude, to carry your own heart gently while reaching outward to hold others with the same care. And if you feel a quiet resonance in your bones, something that whispers, "This is my path too," please share below the one word that captured your heart in this passage. It's a small gesture, but it weaves us together in this vast tapestry of becoming. In the stillness of dawn, a new clarity begins to settle over your days, like the first gentle rays of sunlight. You wake not with the scramble of urgent to-dos, but with a soft permission to simply be. As you let your feet touch the floor, you notice how your body feels no longer carrying the tension of, "I must prove myself," but buoyed by the quiet assurance that you belong exactly where you are. In this tender space, the world doesn't demand that you perform. It invites you to participate, to dance with its rhythms rather than battle them. You carry this openness into your morning ritual, brewing tea or coffee with intention rather than habit. You inhale the steam, aware of how something as simple as warmth rising from your hands can anchor you in the present. Somewhere between the first sip and the second, your mind drifts to an old dream one you once shelved because you thought you lacked the talent, the time, or the right circumstances. Now you realize that the only requirement is your willingness to try. Fear still lingers at the edges, but you greet it not as an enemy, but as a compass pointing toward growth. Midday arrives, and with it an array of small choices that once felt overwhelming. What to prioritize, how to respond when emails flood in, whether to accept one more social invitation. You pause before each decision, asking yourself, what does my heart need right now? You become adept at listening to the subtle signals your stomachs flutter when you say yes to something that resonates, the tightness in your chest when obligation creeps in. Gradually, you find that you can navigate complexity with a newfound ease, guided by inner wisdom rather than external pressure. At work, you propose an idea you once would have hidden, fearing judgment or rejection. Your voice trembles at first, but you hold it steady, reminding yourself that your perspective matters. Colleagues respond with curiosity, even excitement, and you experience a thrill unlike any praise you chased in the past. It's not about validation, it's about alignment, knowing you are contributing from a place of authenticity. Yet the real transformation unfolds in the quiet corners of your relationships. You notice how your partner leans in when you share not just facts, but feelings, the way your child's eyes brighten when you really look at them, not as tasks to manage, but as souls to cherish. You listen deeply to friends who phone in distress, resisting the urge to fix their pain. Instead, you offer your presence, a mirror of compassion that says you are not alone. And in receiving these connections, you come to understand that healing isn't a solo journey. It's a weaving together of hearts, willing to hold one another in their fragility. Evenings become rituals of reflection. You light your candle, journal a few lines about what stirred you that day, then drift into gentle movement, stretching, walking, dancing, to music that calls to your bones. You invite gratitude into your breath, naming 3 simple gifts. Perhaps the way sunlight flitted through the window, the taste of a shared meal, the calm you found in an unexpected pause. These small acknowledgments remind you that life's beauty often arrives in whispers rather than shouts. And still, shadow work continues. You face moments when old insecurities pop up, the echo of a critic's harsh words, the reminder of a missed opportunity, the fear that your progress could slip away. Rather than running, you pause. You shine a light on these shadows, acknowledging their stories. I learned to push my needs aside to feel safe, or I believed I had to earn love by achieving. You thank these parts for the protection they once offered, then gently invite them to rest. In doing so, you integrate the fragments of self you once disowned, allowing your wholeness to expand. A sudden invitation arrives, a retreat in a distant forest, a workshop on creative expression, a volunteer project that tugs at your spirit. You hesitate, weighing the old voices that argue for caution against the new rhythm that whispers adventure. With a deep breath, you say yes. The journey that follows is not just a change of scenery, but a mirror reflecting the depth of your own transformation. Among strangers, you discover kindred hearts. In guided exercises, you unearth buried dreams. In solitary walks, you hear again the soft song of your soul. When you return home, you carry the echoes of that journey within you. You notice how mundane routines now shimmer with possibility. Watering your plants becomes an act of nurturing your own growth. Washing dishes feels like a meditation in gratitude. Folding laundry becomes a prayer for each garment that shelters you. The line between the extraordinary and the ordinary blurs, and you realize that awakening isn't a destination but a lens through which every moment looks new. At night, you lie in bed, eyes closed, heart full. You recognize that you have become both the explorer and the mapmaker, guiding yourself through unknown terrain while drawing new contours of possibility with every breath. The scars you once hid are now badges of honor, reminders of the depths you traversed to arrive here. You feel peace not as an absence of challenge, but as the companion you carry through every tempest. If your own heart stirs at these words, if you feel the quiet glow of recognition, let this be an invitation to keep walking with gentle attention. Share below one word that captures your sense of this transformation. Your voice weaves into ours, creating a tapestry of becoming that stretches beyond this moment. In the glow of your own unfolding, you discover that awakening isn't an endpoint but a living conversation between your heart and the world. Each breath becomes a testament to your courage. Each step, an affirmation of your commitment to stay present no matter where life leads. You feel gratitude for every scar, knowing they guided you toward deeper compassion. You honor every tear, for they washed away illusions that once held you small. In the simplest moments, a shared glance, a song that stirs your bones. The hush between day and night, you recognize the sacred thread weaving through all things. You are both the seeker and the sanctuary, the question and the answer. Thank you for walking this path here, for allowing these words to echo your own journey. If you felt seen, consider subscribing to stay connected as we continue exploring the landscapes of the heart together. Share this video with someone who needs to remember they are not alone, and like it if the invitation to breathe deeper resonated within you. In the comments, leave a word that captures the revelation stirring in your soul tonight, a quiet sign that we travel this road as one. May you carry this gentle fire forward, trusting that every moment holds the seed of transformation. Until we meet again in the soft space between breaths, keep listening to your own heartbeat. It knows the way.